Betty Davis was always a workmanlike actor. She would appear in many, many movies, and for some, she stayed for a reason to promote the various projects she was involved with, while others thought she stayed too long. Now, this movie is kind of a forgotten kind of mini classic. One of the Hammer movies she happened to show up in. It's called The Anniversary. Now, this black comedy film was directed by Roy Ward Baker for Hammer and Seven Arts, and starred, of course, the great Betty Davis. The screenplay by Jimmy Sangster was adapted from Bill McElraith's 1966 play. Cinematography by Harry Waxman, edited by Peter Weatherly, music by Philip Martell, and distributed by Warner Pathé. Barely broke even. The big budget of $1.45 million, made $1.3 million in the U.S. Now, in this one, Betty Davis plays one-eyed Mrs. Taggart, an emasculating woman whose husband, a successful building contractor, has been dead for a decade. Joining her for the traditional annual celebration of her wedding anniversary are her three sons. Eldest Henry is a transvestite. Middle son Terry is planning to emigrate to Canada with his shrewish wife Karen and her 5 children. And youngest Tom, a promiscuous philanderer whose many past relationships have ended at his mother's insistence, arrives with his pregnant girlfriend Shirley in town. Throughout the day and evening, the domineering, evil, vindictive, manipulative matriarch does everything in her power to remind her children who controls the family finances and ultimately their future. Now, a transvestite, a future Canadian, and a man whore. It is what it is. Now, the play was first produced in the West End with Mona Washburn as Mrs. Taggart. Davis initially turned down a role in the screen adaptation, but after Sangster had scripted her earlier film, The Nanny, very underrated movie, by the way, rewrote the screenplay and she agreed to play the role. Sheila Hancock, Jack Hadley, and James Cossins were signed to reprise the roles he had played in the same production. Original director Alan Rakoff was replaced a week into filming after he clashed with Davis, who he felt didn't have the first fundamental knowledge of making a motion picture, let alone what an actor was all about. Now, Davis basically said he was, incompetent. Now, Rakoff, an award-winning director, had steered quite a few actors to acclaimed performances, including Laurence Olivier, Peter Sellers, and a few others, countered, not the most rational woman one can meet, but a great screen actress. She didn't want a director. She wanted someone enthralled to her. Initially, I was, but eventually, talk about making her subservient to the camera is nonsense. The script remained a wordy stage play, hardly the best basis for a film. My removal was a mixture of regret and pleasure. Now, Davis was required to wear self-adhesive eye patches for a role, which not only proved to be a constant irritant, but affected her equilibrium as well. Now, Sheila Hancock knew Davis had wanted Jill Bennett to replace her, but Bennett wasn't available. The concept of the Hollywood star system was foreign to Hancock, a veteran of the English stage company at the Royal Court Theatre, and to resent the fawning attention paid to Davis based on her past successes. Now, this was the problem. It was still Betty Davis. When everyone in the lot arrived to watch the star film her first scene, Hancock was dumbfounded. It took me a while to realize this was the way Betty Davis was used for operating. She was a queen, after all. Now, the film was shot in Elstree and Hertford. An estimated budget, again, 1.45, but gross 1.4 in the United States alone, so it did break even. Now, the British premiere was held at the Rialto Cinema in London on February 11, 1968. In a review in the New York Times, Rena Adler said the film is not a distinguished example of the terrifying older actress filicade mummy genre, but isn't too heavy. And his genre isn't that distinguished after all. TV Guide rates the film 3 out of possible 4 stars and comments, Davis is great, but the film suffers from the staginess of the play of which it was based. Now, it's an acquired taste like most Betty Davis movies. I saw this, again, I bring it back to the TVA, or what's called Channel 5 in Northern New Brunswick. I found it kind of plodding, and, it comes across as a stage play. It came across like a really bad episode of The Night Gallery, which, ironically, her longtime supposed rival Joan Crawford was directed by Spielberg in the Eyes episode, where Betty Davis only had one eye in this production. Now, it could be redone in the modern era, but Betty Davis, again, made the movie, and people went to see Betty Davis. She was still very big in England at the time. So, again, latest Hammer review, the anniversary. If you like what we're doing here on our Hammer month in Canada, as we say, let us know what a like, comment, subscribe, or share. Bye.